Hey guys, welcome back and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tribe Calls. If you're just tuning in for the very first time ever, then Tribe Calls is something where I'm just connecting with people that are in my network, people that I connect with on a regular basis and ask advice from and share stories with, or mentors, and just all across the board, people that have good information to share, and I'm sharing them with you, people in my tribe. So today we have what I think is going to be a very fun episode. If you've watched any of these in the past, you know they're positive and uplifting and light. And the topic at hand is not positive necessarily or necessarily uplifting, but Natalie Dudding is, and I think we're going to have some fun. So, I'm a terrible introducer. I'm just going to bring her on right now so that we can jump into the fun. I promise you'll enjoy her more than you have me so far. So here we go. Let's bring in Natalie.
Hi, guys. That was awesome.
I think you're being too kind, but thank you. Hey, Natalie, thanks for joining us today. So speaking of being a terrible introducer, I didn't explain any of your background or anything like that. I just said you're going to be great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so everybody knows?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for letting me be on your Tribe Calls. I personally watch your Tribe Calls, and they are a lot of fun, very informational. And so I'm honored to be part of this. And so thank you so much. I've been in the title and escrow business for about 15 years now. I'm kind of dating myself here. I started on the escrow side and transitioned over to the sales side, where I get the opportunity to talk to real estate agents and consumers about what we do in our industry and in our business, and hopefully educate people. Let's see, I've got two adorable boys that keep me busy, including then I've got my husband and my husky. So I am sort of overrun by all these boys over here, but I enjoy it very much, and absolutely honored to be here. Thank you so much.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you on. I always enjoy our conversations, and what I love about our conversations is you're on the sales side, so you definitely know the sales and relationship building and some of those skills. But your background, like you said, you started in escrow, so you have some pretty solid legit escrow advice as well. So
thank you. Yeah, I speak escrow fluently.
Yeah. For sure. So speaking of escrow and kind of getting into the topic at hand today, well, I guess actually, why I have a question. It's a funny one, I guess, but when we talk about sales and relationships, you're a naturally pretty bubbly, happy-go-lucky kind of person. This is a pretty heavy topic, so. How did you come to bring up this topic? What inspired you to do this?
Oh my gosh. So great question. There's a couple different answers. First of all, so this topic of death and divorce and how it pertains to real estate, unfortunately, no, it's not the most uplifting, but it's real. And the whole thing about life is that life has its shortcomings and life has its positive moments. And with that being said, us in this industry, we help all walks of life going through any sort of point in their life. So these are life events that are real and they affect everybody. So personally, I come from a divorced family. My parents are divorced, not to get too deep. So I'm kind of passionate about that, and I understand that. I understand its delicacy. And then, I've got, of course, family members who've passed, grandmothers, grandfathers, the whole thing. And then I've seen some really tough situations happen within the escrow process when people weren't prepared for what they needed to do or what to expect when they were experiencing that particular life event in conjunction with a real estate transaction. So, I'm pretty passionate about this, and I think it's important to talk about it. And I think it's okay to talk about things that aren't always the happy-go-lucky stuff. So, yeah.
Okay. And you're doing, so for anybody that's watching that's like a real estate professional of any sort, you're doing actually a full-fledged webinar specifically on this topic, right? Like Till Death or Divorce. This is the title, right? Till Death
Yes.
or Do Us Part.
Yes, it is. This is the title. So if you are a real estate agent or if you're in the business, I invite you to come to my webinar. You can follow me on Facebook. I have the link there. I'd be happy to even give it to Jeff so he can send it to you if you want to register to come. It's just an hour, March 23rd. So Tuesday of next week, 12 o'clock. So bring your lunch. It's nothing fancy. Just listen in. Here's some things that might ring some bells for you or might trigger some conversations for you as you're out there in the marketplace, talking to potential clients. And really what we're going to talk about is we're going to go through some of the things that title and escrow can do, what we can't do, what we need, what we don't necessarily need, all pertaining to death and probate and divorce in an escrow transaction. So it's important that you have this stuff in your mind, in the back of your mind, so that when you are talking to people and maybe you hear about their life situation and they bring up one of these life events, it doesn't trigger I don't know anything about that response. So hopefully provides you some confidence when you're out there in the marketplace.
Awesome. And so because a lot of times like real estate pros or people in my network will watch these tribe calls, right? They're in my tribe. But then also too, we just have like, our people that are not in the real estate business and they're business owners or they're my friends or family or whatever. So for anybody that's, thinking about death or divorce, no, that's messed up. I can't believe I said that. It's
a hard topic to talk about. I completely agree with you. I know. And it's not even like if you're thinking about it, but if it's something that is in your bubble for whatever reason, right? It's okay. It's okay. I would say they could benefit from it too. I really honestly think that you could. And here's the deal, guys. These are life events that are in of themselves can be scary things to encounter, okay? However, you've got human beings around you who care about you and want to help you and want to assist you, and professionals who will handle everything with delicacy and care, so that you're not really going through these events necessarily completely alone in the woods. So I agree with you, Jeff. I was like, how do we talk about this in a delicate manner, but at the same time, just put it out there that these are life things that are happening.
Yeah. So we all, especially in California, I know the divorce rate is up there. I don't like what, and maybe even now, right? Like why is this a timely webinar? I guess.
Yeah. So let's go back to a little bit more on a personal level, just to keep it fun. Okay. I have been home more in my marriage and in my career than I ever have. I have seen my husband more than I think I ever have in 12 years of being married. Now, I love him dearly and we work hard every day to make things happen and whatever. Takes two to tango, right? However, there are days when I just want to. Now, with that being said, I could only imagine those relationships that are really particularly strained under the guise of this pandemic. So I was reading some articles, and the BBC put out an article saying that yes, divorce rates have increased, and divorce rates have increased due to this time that we're all sort of spending together, which is human nature to get tired of somebody, sick of somebody or whatever. So of course, if there were issues, it just makes so much sense to me, right? If there already were issues or maybe some things weren't happening the way we wanted them to, and what work and getting out of the house was doing was avoiding those issues coming to the surface. I could only imagine what's going to happen as we're all forced to be within the same house 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, not to state the obvious, but we also have we also need to talk about death of an owner of a property and how to handle that situation. How does the family handle that situation? Some things to remember, like, a will doesn't necessarily promise that a house is going to be given to somebody that's stated in the will. The will doesn't have any jurisdiction over the real estate property. So those are things that I feel like are really important to just hear right now. And I'm not trying to pour salt into this wound of all the maybe not so good things that have come out of being forced to stay in place due to the pandemic. But at the same time, there's a reality of the situation. And if you're going through one of these life events, know that there's professionals around you who can help you with this stuff.
So without giving too much of the webinar away, or at least the content, because again, that might be very much geared towards real estate professionals and how the professionals can help their clients. Like, what are some of the issues right now that are happening in regards to real estate with death and divorce, or maybe have been happening?
Got it. Yeah, no problem. So one story in particular was we had a gentleman call. It was a for sale by owner. He was under the impression the home that he was living in was his. It was given to him by his mother. And so we went to pull the prelim and found that there were actually 11 people on title, not just him. And so what had happened was the mother, who was now deceased, was given bad legal advice and was trying to save, I guess, some money on the probate process, or no, excuse me, on the trust and creating a trust, the process in that. And so she went to somebody who knew enough to be dangerous and put the property into all the names of the brothers and sisters, and including the gentleman who was trying to sell. So what ultimately ended up happening was the property had to go through probate. They had to find all of the brothers and sisters and all of the people who potentially had interest in the property. Everybody then got a small share of the proceeds, and it ended up being like a 1.5-year process to close that transaction. And this guy just wanted to close within 2 weeks. He had gotten a cash offer. And I'm seeing a lot of for sale by owner transactions right now. So those are the type of things where, a real estate professional and an escrow professional, an attorney, those guys really are worth their weight in gold, because they can help you avoid these issues down the road. So that's a story that always sticks out in my mind, that's really pertaining to death in an escrow. If you have one party who's passed away on a property, it's relatively easy to solve that issue if the other party is still with us. So I'm not saying all this to scare you or to make this sound like it's a huge big deal. There's just things to know and things to understand. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I just have a will, so I'll just write my will. I can write it on a napkin and I'll give my house to my favorite granddaughter. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Well, and I remember talking with, my go-to resource in terms of legal advice, in estate attorney, and she was saying, because of COVID, the courts have been backlogged by so much, right? Like, so that year transaction could take longer than that right now.
Yes.
Through probate.
That is, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was another thing that we're going to talk about more in detail on Tuesday, is time frames and what's needed and what we need from the court to proceed and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. And so another small example is I had a lady call me. She wanted to know who was on title. We took a look at the property profile, found that her and her 2 siblings were on title. One of those siblings is now incapacitated. So that particular sibling whoever is caring for that sibling has to get an, executorship, and be able to speak on her behalf. So those are all things that you kind of, they sit on the side burner while you're just busy doing your life and doing your thing. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, if that person was to pass away, now you have to actually go through, a couple more hoops. So if anything, if I can teach anybody anything, whether it's a consumer or an agent, plan ahead when it comes to your, thoughts about where your property would go if you were to, unfortunately, leave us.
Yeah. Well, and I can just imagine like the for sale by owner person, right? For example, how much time and preparation did they put into preparing their house, getting it ready? They probably went out and bought the yard signs, and they maybe made some flyers or do whatever their process might be for doing this, right? Found a buyer, negotiated the terms and the deal, and like put it all together. Anyhow, put it all together, and then then they're like, okay, cool, what's next? Well, now we gotta do an escrow. What's an escrow? All right, well, escrow. And then you order the prelim, and that takes a few days, preliminary title report, right? And that takes a few days. So they're like potentially quite a bit into this process already, maybe even making plans to move because it's supposed to be a 2-week cash deal.
Yes.
Only to find out like, hey, this is probably going to take like a year.
Yeah. And I could only imagine, you're absolutely right. Like I keep thinking about like, what if he had to pay for something? What if he needed that money for something important? And the thing is a lot of times, our more elderly community is not really well versed in a lot of this stuff. Sometimes they feel like they're like, oh, well, I wrote my will, so it should be fine, and the whole thing. And we really have to help educate people on what to do so that everything's lined up to happen the way they want it to, when they die. I know the intent for this particular lady who passed away and, had the son and the whole issue was, I'm sure, not for her son to go through all of this stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, so the biggest issue kind of we've seen, and this is probably not just for right now, but it's maybe pretty consistent on, across throughout time, is just not having proper title set up, not having your property in a trust, or not having things on title the right way.
That's right. You're right. So vesting issues. So if you're working with buyers right now, real estate agents who are on this call, if you're working with buyers, make sure they understand how they're taking title when they're purchasing their property with their boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, whatever you want, and understand the ramifications if one of those parties were to decease or what have you. And you can find more information out about that through my Chicago Title Library website. If you guys want to go to that, you don't need a password. You could just log on. It's chicagotitleibrary.com. And there is information on there on the different ways to hold title. So make sure you're really looking at that. And of course, if your client has really in-depth questions, consult an attorney, real estate attorney for sure.
Yeah. Do you know how long it takes to, let's say, something's going sideways in the family and someone's about to pass away. They don't have a will, or they don't have a trust, but they want to create one really quick, right? Like, do you know about how long that process is to not only create the trust, but then to get it recorded and get the property in the name of the trust?
Yeah. I don't, unfortunately. I'm curious. I'd be curious about what the answer is to that question. I do know that, once a document is prepared and signed by everybody, and maybe it's not necessarily of record when somebody passes, if you can provide that documentation to our title department, that can be reviewed in underwriting for, additional sort of input on how we're going to address the current title or the current vesting for that particular property. So being on, if a document is fully executed and notarized, but it just didn't happen to get recorded, there is something that we can do with that still.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Now the other fun topic, which is divorce. Do you have any, like, what are some of the common issues or problems with title and real estate when it comes to divorce?
Okay, so we talked about this. We talked about how divorce is increasing. You guys, Sacramento County has the highest rate of divorce in California for counties that are over 1 million people. So that's good. That's interesting information to note, because if you are out there, real estate agents, and you are talking to your clients or you're prospecting, take that into consideration. This is something you just want to know about. You don't want to come off as uneducated or wary when you hear that your client is, just finished a divorce or selling because of divorce, or whatever the case may be. So the fact of the matter is that you're probably going to run into somebody, if you haven't already, who's experiencing a divorce and needs to sell because of it. So I just thought that was an interesting fact. And I think some of the things come up with divorce and escrow is like, okay, we're already divorced. He's gone. He's in Florida. I don't know where he is. I just want to sell this house and be done with it. And I just want to hurry up and get it done. We still have to have whoever is on title sign off. So even if the divorce states that one of the parties is to keep the home or the sale proceeds of the home, in the decree, that doesn't necessarily mean that nothing needs to be signed or addressed by the party who's still on title. We still have to have them sign some documentation. So with that being said, we still have to have a way to contact that individual. And the other party doesn't have to have any, there doesn't have to be any assistance or, with the other party. We can handle that piece, but that's a common misconception.
And that's a notarized, sign in person kind of thing. That's not like a little, here's a DocuSign or scan it back. That's an official signing.
That's correct. Yeah, it's an official document, and they sign in additional instructions. And of course, both parties have to agree to those instructions. So if only one party was declared the owner of the property and the one who was able to receive all the sale proceeds if the property was sold, we still have to have the other party sign appropriate instructions and an actual document, as you said, Jeff, that has to be notarized. So yes, it does require that other party one last time just to get that transaction closed.
Is it common that that's signed during the divorce process? Like, how common is it that you've gone through the divorce already and then you still have to go back and do this? Or is that?
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times. I've seen it where, both parties were in agreement that they wanted the divorce to take place, so they expedited that process rather quickly. And because the other party was eager to move on with their life or whatever, they just kind of like, whoop, okay, divorce is done. We're on our way over here. And then when you're ready to sell or whatever, I'll sign whatever documentation I need to. So 90% of the time it goes like that, which is great. There's those few times where the parties are still, maybe in a disagreement or one can't be located. And that's another issue. If we can't find one of the parties, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can continue the transaction and just say, oh, well, we couldn't find the other guy, so we're just going to move on. We can't. The whole transaction actually stops right there.
Got it. And so, maybe doing so, like if you're planning on selling your property, and you don't know whether or not that's occurred, or you don't know whether or not that's been handled or recorded or whatever, then, which you would know because you would have actually already gone through the recording process, right? Like an attorney doesn't
That's right. Exactly. Yes. And so if that's the case, we would find the recorded deed that has taken the other party off, and we would put title in the appropriate party's name. And because it's done by an attorney, we'll have it that way on the preliminary title report. If you're a real estate agent and you're going in and you're talking to a consumer who is thinking of selling their home, and you're just chatting with them and they tell you, yeah, I'm single. Maybe they don't get too deep into it. And then you get back to your office and pull a property profile, look at the tax records, and find that another party is on title and it's showing, husband and wife. And, you say, okay, I'm going to need you and your husband to sign this. She's like, oh, that's not my husband anymore. We are divorced. That is where you're going to have to educate your client and say, okay, so I'm going to just consult with my title department, but I understand that, we're going to have your husband sign off. So those are some things that you're going to want to know ahead of time and get the ball rolling so that there's adequate time to secure that documentation.
Yeah.
Those signatures. Yeah.
For sure. Well, especially in this super fast-paced market, right? Like I'm like, hey, we're going to go on the market on a Wednesday. I'm going to do boom, 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 boom. And then we're going to review offers on Tuesday. Good? All right, cool. We need to have everything.
We're closing on Thursday. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. So, any information you can find out ahead of time is really key because, and then of course, gauge your client too. Was this a sticky divorce? Was this a sticky situation? Sometimes you have incidences where the divorce isn't final yet, and we have to have both parties sign a complete package, on both sides. So, and they don't have to sign together. So if that's, something that people are worried about, they don't have to. One can sign separately, over here, one over there, depending on logistics, whatever. So we try to handle that with delicacy so that the parties don't have to interact.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fun stuff. I mean, basically what it all boils down, it's crazy, like almost with every scenario, right? Like you can kind of blanket solve or say like the solution is plan ahead, right? And like you can't always plan for every single thing, but like having a trust you can plan for now. Like you could set that up now. And if you have got a divorce, like making sure all the paperwork's signed, or if you're about to go through a divorce, like making sure all of that is established up front, like you can plan for ahead of time.
You totally can. And that's really just, if you get anything out of this, plan ahead of time. This is just, Jeff and I saying, don't forget, anything can happen, and make sure you have it. I mean, I'm saying it to myself too. I need to get myself dialed in on, what would happen if I, were to meet some kind of tragic end, what comes of my peace here. So yeah, it's just important stuff to keep in the back of your head and to have it readily available. And to just know that you have a resource to call and ask questions. And that's kind of why I'm putting it out there as well. Like, you can call me, you can call the escrow officer. We're here for you. And whatever questions we can't answer, we'll refer to you to an attorney or somebody who can.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to probably post in this link somewhere, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, the art or the interview that I did with Rachel Patton, who is my estate attorney, and she did an interview on like why put my home in a trust, right? And kind of went through some of the big bullet points there too. So maybe next time I need to talk to a family law.
Okay. Those things. Yeah, that's really cool. It's good information. And just as a reiteration, you guys, once you put your property in the trust, Title and Escrow doesn't have to see the entire trust. So we have you just sign a trust certificate, which is cool. There are times where we need to see the trust depending on what's going on. But once you have that set up, we just go from there.
Awesome. So should I drop the link here for people to just like click the link and register, or should I have
them? Yeah, that'd be so cool. I would love that. Yeah, I'll have you do that. That'd be really, really cool. Yeah, the more the merrier. And honestly, I try to keep it fun at the same time, respectful of the situation. I know it's hard right now. Everybody's probably really tired of Zooms and really tired of things. But gosh, I want you just to be prepared for whatever comes your way and not feel like you have to scramble. Say, oh, I heard this somewhere before. So, yeah, bring your lunch and listen in.
All right. Awesome. Well, I know I will be, I just dropped the link. I hope that works for everybody, but
for sure.
I'll be tuning in, and I appreciate you doing this tribe call. I'm sure we'll be back with maybe a different topic at some point in time, but it was cool of you to join us today.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, Natalie. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you. Bye, guys.